With all this hype and crazy expectations surrounding Wemby, I have pretty big concerns that the media and fans, literally fans worldwide, are setting him up for failure. I mean, at this point, sure, everyone's seen the crazy highlights and they know his height, wingspan, heard all the prospect comparisons about Kareem and LeBron and whatnot, but I'm trying to take a much more practical approach. I'm hoping and trusting the Spurs are doing the same thing. Going back and looking at everything, the first thing that stands out to me is not a big hype guy. So the can't miss, instant franchise changer, once in a lifetime player, blah, blah, blah. All those titles that we see get put on prospects every so often across really all sports. You hear it getting put on literally kids, high school, college. In the long run, when you look back, a handful of them pan out. There's a lot that pan out to be successful or good pros, but very few meet the expectations, and next to none exceed those expectations. More often than not, I feel the actual franchise-changing stars are prospects who had some kind of level, some questioning. Some people were hot on them, some people were a little cooler on them, and they're picked later, in hindsight, than they should have been, and then they develop into these stars that we know as like elites in whatever sport, not just basketball. I mean, there's been a lot of comparisons just in the Spurs case to the last time they had the first pick and got Duncan, and these two scenarios are very different. Spurs got Duncan because Robinson was hurt. I think he was out all but 6 games that season. Sean Elliott missed like half the season, and then Duncan's rookie season, he walks into a team that has, a healthy David Robinson, a healthy Sean Elliott, Avery Johnson, Vinny Del Negro, Chuck Person. All these guys had 7 or more years of experience in the league, and he's also paired up with a future Hall of Fame coach in a system that built that, already had that culture and put that together, where Wemby is going to be joining a team that's going through an actual full rebuild. And I think one player, assuming they don't trade McDermott, which I would be surprised if he does stay on the team. He's the only one with more than 5 years experience that should be on that team next year unless they make other trades. So you've got a super young team going through a pretty crazy multi-year rebuild, and this is just a different world for a rookie, a 19, 20-year-old to walk into. The most glaring issue to me, and just about the only one I hear people even mention as a downside for him, is the size and potential susceptibility to injury that you see frequently with guys that are in that 7'3", 7'5" range. Obviously, any guy being that size doesn't mean they're automatically going to get hurt. I get that, but historically, way more get hurt than stay healthy over the long term. When you add in the fact that the NBA season is more than twice the length of the seasons he's been playing in France, that just adds to the wear and tear that's going to be put on his body. And, to put it kind of in perspective, the last 4 years in France, he's played, I know the postseason's still going now for him, but he's played 86 games. That's not much. That's including postseason. So his entire career in France is barely longer than what a regular NBA season is going to be for him. Watching as many of his games as I could, not just the highlights, it's easy to see, the intrigue that people have in his ability to score, his ball handling, obviously his height. I'm most impressed, I think, with his defense, but it's super clear as you watch all the possessions that many of his shots and drives are not the best of decisions. His passing out of double teams or even lockdown, when he's locked down by one guy, isn't the best. It's kind of sloppy. The reality, his shooting, especially from 3, it still needs quite a bit of work. Keep hearing all this hype about how he could be like Durant and he's this great shooter, especially for his height. This season, he shot just over 1 of 5 threes per game. So, I mean, he's barely over 27%. His 2-point percentage was about 56%. But again, without a lot of those bad decision making, if he gets a little closer to the rim, the guy can basically reach up and dunk. His 2-point percentage, especially shots around the basket, should be a lot higher than what they are, statistically at least. And the last 2 kind of smaller concerns that I have are both, I guess, rumors. One is that he was moved from Tony Parker's team to a much younger and less talented team where he could basically have free range to showcase his talent. Obviously, get more minutes. He wasn't getting a lot of minutes on the previous team for them to prep him for the draft. The other rumor is that he supposedly doesn't want to play the 5 and prefers more of a 3 than a 4. So if you factor that in, if that's true, in looking at the type of development he's going to need to do or how ready he's going to be walking into the league, his ball handling will definitely have to improve more along with his shooting if he's going to be out around the rim. The thing you hear a lot is his talent for his height. When he gets to the league, he's going to have to just have the talent. It's not going to matter, like, count more for him in games because you have to factor in he's tall. Porzingis is 7'3", and has a lot of talent for his height, but he's not a franchise changing player. He's bounced around a couple times and hasn't really lived up to the hype. I know he's had injuries, and I get that they're different guys, but I kind of look at him in that perspective and look at some of the things. Seems like his dribbling's a little slow. It could be because he's so long or so tall. I don't feel like he really has the quickest feet. He uses his length, his wingspan a lot to keep guys in front of him, which is great. It's definitely a tool he can build off of. And if he does get pushed into playing more of a 4, I'm sure ideally coaches and teams would like to have him at a 5 with as tall as he is. He's definitely going to have to pack on weight. He's going to have to pack on muscle and strength. And again, now you kind of start getting back into the injury concerns. Like, can he do that without getting hurt? Can he be in low post in games with NBA centers, NBA bigs, getting, banging around with those guys and last over the long term? With all that being said, I don't expect him to be a bust. I'm not predicting that he's gonna be a flash in the pan or not pan out. And I don't necessarily think he's gonna have the injury concerns that some of the other guys have. His track record with histories are typically minor things like a broken finger, a pulled or torn psoas muscle, just things like that, not MCL or ligament, lower leg ligament injuries or microfractures, things like that. One of the best things I think that could happen was for him to go to the Spurs. They still seem to have maintained over this time a great culture. I think they do a great job developing players. Tony Parker still has a close relationship with the Spurs, and he's known Wemby since he was a kid. It's been reported that Anu, Timmy, and him have all three agreed to mentor and work pretty close with him to get him acclimated to the NBA. As the godfather, so to speak, of load management, I doubt Pop will have him playing anywhere near a full season anytime soon. I would assume Pop's going to adjust the offense to allow him to play his style no matter what he's listed as position-wise, whether it's anywhere from the 3 to the 5. I could see him being listed as a center, playing more like a 3 or, a 4. You look back at Duncan, especially once Robinson was gone, he was pretty much always listed as the 4. They went through a bunch of different guys that played the center alongside of him, but throughout the course of the game, it was him in the low block, him on the side setting up for that bank shot. They're just playing like a center, but he was always listed as a 4. I could see him being listed as a 5 or even a 4 and playing, once the ball's rolled out, playing a little bit different position. The Spurs keep Zach Collins, and from the way Pop sound in the exit interviews, I'm a lot more confident that they're going to than I was when the season had ended. I think he's a good fit next to him, even though he's smaller. He's not afraid to get dirty. He's a scrappy, physical guy. Kind of seems to prioritize defense more than offense. I would assume they'd get somebody else. They don't seem too deep at the center position, but I think they're going to have guys that they can rotate in and out of there to take minutes, to take kind of the beating against more physical teams, and they can rotate and try to pick up some of those bigger bodied guys that do like to bang around in the low post and keep a lot of the physicality and wear and tear off of Wemby, at least early on, until he starts to develop into that role, if that's in fact where they're going to actually play him at. I don't expect the Spurs to keep drafting 1 or 2 guys in the first round every year high up, like to maintain, other than whatever first round pick they would have. So whether it's this year, the next, or whenever they start to dip into that bevy of first round picks that they have, I'm sure they're going to start to add a star, maybe 2 if they can, definitely some veteran role players sometime in the near future. Like I said, whether that's this year or next, I think it's going to happen relatively soon. And I don't think it's just that'll be beneficial for Wemby, but it's also going to help, again, like I said, how young that team is, to start getting some veteran experience and some other guys that can, in crunch time early on, while these younger guys are developing, the team can kind of lean on, like they did with DeJounte before they shipped him out. I definitely think Wemby has, the tools, the intangibles, the tangibles. I think he has obviously he for sure has the height and the length. Seems to have plenty of those other tools to develop into a star. I think the Spurs are the right team to develop him into that. I just worry that the near impossible expectations that it seems like people are putting on this kid who's 19 years old, is just too much. And then I hope he's not already being viewed as the player that I think it's going to take a few years for him to become.